You know what's interesting to me? I don't fear for Israel. I don't fear for... God declared... Here's the way God said it, and you'll forgive my loose paraphrase, if you will, but basically God says it like this. I'm going to return Israel to the land. That's the land that I gave them. I did not give it to the descendants of Ishmael. I gave it to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is not Palestine. It is Israel. Now, once they're back in the land, the enemy nations are going to try to destroy them. But I'm not going to let it happen. See, Israel will live forever. If Israel were to be wiped off the map, then the stars would cease to be hanging in the sky. And he goes on to describe all of these unthinkable things by way of analogy that would also cease if Israel were to cease as a nation. Bottom line, ain't going to happen. You know, I've had people say to me, you know, the safest place to live right now is Israel. You're right. You're right. I think I'd rather be living in Israel or in Jerusalem than in New York, because God says, I'm going to protect them. You know, any enemy that comes against them, they're not going to succeed. They will not. Someone needs to tell Ahmadinejad this, please. It is for this reason that the eyes of the world are on Iran and their nuclear ambitions and their development of nuclear weapons, you see. Haaretz in November last month had this article, which is really interesting. The headline reading, "With all eyes on Iran, who's watching Pakistan's nuclear arsenal?" Now listen to this. Fear of the Iranian nuclear weapons development program has overshadowed the fact that not far from Tehran, actually right nearby, two countries, India and Pakistan, already possess nuclear weapons. Not just warheads stored in warehouses, but weapons that have already been tested and were even used to back up the two countries' reciprocal threats against each other. These countries, unlike Iran, are not signatories of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and one of them, Pakistan, faces a real threat to its ability to control all parts of its territory. The Taliban in Pakistan, who recently attacked Pakistani military bases, are feeding Westerners' fears that the government will lose control over all its military capabilities. That is bad news. WorldNet Daily ran an article by Hal Lindsey earlier this year with the question as a headline, "A Nuclear Taliban?" The Pakistani Taliban, even while continuing their penetration of central Pakistan, have begun mobilizing fresh recruits from all over the country to go help their Afghan Taliban brothers resist the newly arriving Western troops. This is what we're doing in Afghanistan, by the way. We don't want nuclear weapons to fall into the hands of the Taliban. The article goes on to say the Taliban now control the tribal regions of Pakistan. Pakistan was one of the only two nations on earth that recognized the Taliban as Afghanistan's legitimate government, the other being Osama's home country of Saudi Arabia. Many ranking members of the Pak Security Service, the ISI, are members of the Taliban, as they were in 2002 when Pakistan initially faced off against Washington over Osama bin Laden. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton made headlines last weekend during an interview with Fox News. She says, quote, "If the worst, the unthinkable were to happen, and this advancing Taliban, encouraged and supported by Al-Qaeda and other extremists, were to essentially topple the government for failure to beat them back, then they would have the keys to the nuclear arsenal of Pakistan." Now put the two together. Connect the dots here. Okay, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. The Bible predicts some 2,000 plus years prior that in the last days there would be nations like Iran, there would be factions like the Taliban that will seek to acquire and even acquire nuclear weaponry in their attack against Israel. They won't succeed, but nonetheless we're seeing that which was predicted in the Bible coming to pass with 100% accuracy. Well, be that as it may, and suffice it to say, the time is short. So much is happening so fast, And time is so short that we're told by Jesus himself that the days will actually have to be shortened. Let me just stop just quickly and parenthetically and say this. The reason why I know we are the generation that will see the return of Jesus Christ in the event we call the rapture, and by the way, I know I'm going a little bit off here, but just bear with me. I am getting sick and tired. I know this is going to sound unloving, but I'm getting, so help me God, the next person that said the word rapture isn't in the Bible. Okay? Now, if you're one who has said that, that's okay. I still love you. And God will forgive you. The word rapture may not be in your Bible. Oh, well, excuse me. Is it in your Bible, Pastor? Well, it's not in my Bible either because I, like you, have an English Bible. Now, where do we get the word rapture, and where is the word rapture in the Bible? It's in the original Latin Vulgate. The what date? The Latin Vulgate. The Latin word rapturus is transliterated, not translated, transliterated rapture. Now, we don't use the word rapture in our vernacular. We use the words, actually two words, the words caught up, because that's what rapture means. It is to be caught up, rapturus, with great force, to be snatched away, to be taken away, to be raptured away, if you will. So the word rapture is in the original Latin Bible. Anybody know Latin here? We could just provide Latin Bibles and show the next person that says that where the word rapture is in the Bible. Now, in the original language of the Greek New Testament, it's not rapture or rapturus, it's harpazo. I like rapture better. Did you imagine a bumper sticker? In case of harpazo. This just doesn't have the same ring to it, right? I just, like, rapture is one of those words that sounds like what it is. Rapture. You know, you got, harpazo seems slow. Harpazo. just you lose it. Anyway, that's the Greek for you. But in the original language of Latin, that's where we get the word rapturus, hence, and the word rapture transliterated, hence, rapture is in the Bible. Now, I know I went off, but let me just kind of bring it back if I can find the same runway I was approaching. Forgive the airplane illustration as an Arab again. But Jesus said that the days will be so evil, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would survive. No flesh would survive. Now, this is found in Matthew's Gospel, the 24th chapter, verses 21 and 22. Now, this again is why I believe it is that we are the generation that will see the return of Jesus Christ. See, the generation that witnessed the return of Israel to their land, 1948, the capturing of Jerusalem, 1967, will be the generation that will see the return of Jesus Christ. That's what sets us apart from any other generation. Because, see, I could not stand up before you today and talk as I do about prophecies like Zechariah 14, which talk about the surrounding peoples around Jerusalem. I would not be able to talk with you about Ezekiel 38 and 39, which describes this allied attack against Israel, a nuclear attack against Israel. Why? Because prior to 1948, Israel was not in the land. So see, when the clock started was back in 1948, and I believe the clock accelerated in 1967, and it will continue to accelerate. It reminds me of what Jesus said. Revelation 20 records it. Jesus said, "Behold, I come quickly." It's an interesting Greek word that's used. It's the word tachos, where we get tacho, or the tachometer, or tachometer. What's the tachometer? It's the measurement of a set time, but revolutions per minute, RPMs. In other words, Jesus is saying, I'm going to come at a time when things are revved up. The time is set, and no man knows the day or the hour, not even the Mayans. It's not December.